Not all animated movies make it to the big screen. Typically at a film studio, there are many concepts that are being developed at the same time, and only the biggest and baddest make it. No, we're not just talking about Shrek. More often than not, a film can be written, cast, shot, fully edited, and still never experience being picked apart by people like us. Today, we'll be looking at some Disney films that were in production, but who never got their happily ever after. Join us as we mourn the Halloween costumes that could have been, and the toys that didn't even get a story. Over the Christmas holidays, it was revealed by cinematographer Seamus McGarvey that Disney will be pulling the plug on the latest live-action version of Pinocchio. We are wildly upset because Tom Hanks has been cast as Geppetto, and we were hoping to see him sporting this chic little nighttime look. For those of you who lived a deprived childhood and never got to see the original, Pinocchio is a story of a young puppet who wants to be a real boy. It's a wild ride of a story, and sure, we agree that all the underage smoking, drinking, and gambling that takes place in the original might have been ever so slightly off color to a modern-day audience. But putting that aside, who remembers the whale? We are absolutely chapped that we won't be able to experience the terror of seeing that giant leviathan swallow Pinocchio whole. Disney, if you're listening, we're not mad. We're just disappointed. Next up is a movie called Fraidy Cat, the tale of a frightened feline named Oscar who's already lost 3 of his 9 lives, and doesn't want to lose any more. When a pet is kidnapped, Oscar is framed as the prime suspect, and must get to the bottom of who the real culprit is. As we can see by the character design done by Andreas Deja, Harold Sieperman, and Hans Bacher, Oscar looked like a sweeter, less than cantankerous version of Garfield. The film was meant to be a satire referencing Alfred Hitchcock's film noirs, but apparently some children aren't as well versed in Hitchcock as others. The real question is, what do they teach in this place? Our next pick is Wildlife, not to be confused with the Lionsgate movie about Robinson Crusoe being trapped on a desert island. This flick was to be based off of My Fair Lady, but instead of Audrey Hepburn gracing the screen as Eliza Doolittle, it's an elephant named Ella. Ella is from a zoo and wants to make it as a star, but is unsure of herself. When she gets knocked unconscious, Ella wakes up and believes she is a famous pop singer, and with this newfound confidence, her wish comes true. It's basically the plot to Amy Schumer's movie I Feel Pretty, except hopefully this wouldn't have made plus-size jokes or scored 36% on Rotten Tomatoes. Wildlife was said to have paid homage to figures such as Andy Warhol and Anna Wintour. Yet another flick that children could have learned a little culture from. The Emperor and the Nightingale is a Hans Christian Andersen story that Disney was in the process of adapting. The film was supposed to have used paper cutout animation to tell the traditional tale, and have none other than the mouse himself be a part of the cast. The story goes that an emperor falls in love with the sound of a nightingale, but upon hearing a mechanical bird, gives up his feathered friend in exchange for the machine. When the emperor gets sick, it's only his true nightingale that can restore his health. This could have been a cautionary tale for our tech-obsessed generation. We're guessing if you're watching this, odds are you're one of them. Our next film choice was based on the story by Philip K. Dick's King of the Elves. It's about an older man named Calder who, upon finding that the Elf King has died in his bed while hosting him, he becomes the new leader of the elves and begrudgingly accepts to protect them. A relatable tale, because who hasn't had this happen to them? In the story, Calder rises to the challenge and battles many trolls in defense of his new friends. Just imagine this unlikely old man hero fighting off the wickedness of the world. Gandalf would have had some heavy competition. While the film was gaining traction in 2012 and was even supposed to rival Frozen with a holiday release, it was quickly abandoned, which effectively ruined Christmas for all of us. Honestly, we just hope those elves are doing okay after their king got dethroned. Up next is the tale of a cocky rooster named Chanticleer, who believes his loud crowing is what makes the sun rise. The trouble is, everyone else on the farm believes him, which doesn't help his already inflated ego. When Reynard, the evil fox, comes to town in a disguise, the farm animals fall in love with him and want him to replace Chanticleer as their leader. Our hero eventually figures out Reynard's plan, and spoiler, although I guess this is nothing to spoil because this will never come out, saves his friends and transforms into the true hero we always thought he was. The House of Mouse did a lot of work on this one throughout the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and wanted to make it into a musical, but ended up scrapping it and developing The Sword and the Stone instead. Luckily, some of the character design lived on in Disney's Robin Hood. Here is what our feathered friend might have looked like. For a while there, Disney was adapting a Terry Pratchett novel called Mort. In the film, our protagonist Mort is being trained by the personification of death to be his apprentice. During his training process, things go south when Mort rescues a princess from assassination, and thus changes the fabric of his world. But he couldn't help it! Just look at her! This Tim Burton-esque looking film could have been a Halloween classic, but the project was cut for two reasons. Number one, Pratchett had sold the rights of the film as a package, and Disney didn't want to take on an entire franchise, thank you very much. And two, maybe, just maybe, death being a main character could freak kids out? Are we crazy? Just spitballing. The next flick is about a blue-footed newt race that are going extinct, and it's up to one male and one female to save the day. The only teeny tiny issue is they can't stand each other. What's not a hit about that? Seems like a wild ride, a sort of updated Pride and Prejudice, if you will, but more fun and less of Colin Firth wearing his wet shirt. No doubt those newts would have found love by the end, in order to totally repopulate planet Earth with little blue-footed newt babies. This could have been an excellent couple's costume idea, but no! A little film called Rio got in the way. The 2011 animated feature had a similar concept in that two rare birds were forced together for the sake of their species. Sound familiar? Well, it certainly did to Disney's Pixar, so alas, newts, rest in peace. Probably the film that had the biggest budget that flopped was Disney's Gigantic. It was an adaptation of Jack and the Beanstalk where Jack meets a 60-foot female giant who's 11 years old. Set in Spain, we were supposed to see Jack befriend this giantess named Inma, despite her light mistreatment of him, instead of duel with her like in the original fairy tale. Although the project was announced in 2015, it kept being pushed back before finally being cancelled. Even with a star-studded director team, they didn't quite make it, and we are crying into our pillows each night thinking about what could have been. Penelope and the 12 Months is our next contender. The original story was about a young girl who travels through time with the help of a magical grandfather clock. In her travels, Penelope meets a bunch of freaky freaks, including a leprechaun and Mother Nature herself. After World War II, artist and writer Mary Blair freshened up the story by changing it entirely and ripping off the Prince and the Pauper. In the new story, Penelope is a lowly servant who just miraculously happens to look like the princess. While the artwork done for this film is clearly stunning, it was said in a screening test that kids would not respond well to a child so young. We think old Mary Blair could have simply made her a little bit taller. Next up is Toots in the Upside Down House. Toots is a lonely child who stumbles upon an upside-down world inside her own home that thankfully is nothing like the one in Stranger Things. The film was supposed to be directed by Henry Selick, The Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach, and produced by Tim Burton, so needless to say, this could have been a Halloween hit with two of the creepiest, in the best sense of the word, men in film behind it. However, after James and the Giant Peach received bad sales, the film was forced to close up shop. Sayonara, Toots! Our next movie that could have been sandwiched in between The Little Mermaid and Peter Pan on your VHS Classics shelf is called The Bremen Town Musicians. This is a story of a donkey, a dog, a cat, and a rooster who are all getting too old to be useful on their respective farms and are looking for a change of scenery. Despite their old age, they decide to break loose as a team and pursue their dreams of becoming musicians in Bremen. This is just a hunch, but we're guessing in the pitch meeting of this flick, some parents probably decided that a movie that's moral is to give everything up to be a musician didn't fly. We're guessing if these animals were going to law school or becoming doctors, this might have made the cut. We can see right through this one, Disney. Hootsie is a misfit owl who sleeps soundly through the night and is awake during the day. Because of this, he is ridiculed by his family and must learn to overcome being a total owl freak. In this story, an evil snake wants to steal owl eggs and gets Hootsie involved in his thievery. However, clever Hootsie realizes it may not be such a good idea to be giving away his friend's baby owls to a predator. So he protects the eggs throughout the day and saves the night. While Hootsie never made it onto our screens, the snake concept was taken and used for Jungle Book as the terrifying character Kaa. So at the end of the day, we were left with a character that would haunt children for years to come. Thanks again, Disney, you nailed it. In Witch Witch, adapted from the book by Eva Ibbotson, a famous magician named Ahriman the Awful goes looking for love. And instead of using the old-fashioned way, Tinder, he decides to make things a little more interesting and hosts a contest for eligible women who must use their powers to battle for his affection. Because his bride must possess the darkest of powers, it's no surprise that some total bad witches show up to compete. Women like Mother Bloodworth, Ethel Feebag, and the Shouter sisters roll up and present him their most terrible spell. spells. While most of the ladies are conjuring up snakes, there is one witch named Belladonna who can only do white magic, and boy is it embarrassing! But surprise, surprise, Ahriman falls for her, and everything is fun and magical and lovely, but we'll never get to see it, so don't get attached like we did. Our final lost film we found was called Louis the Bear. Remember King Louis from the Jungle Book? That ape who was obsessed with learning the secrets of man's red fire? You remember the song? Well, his voice actor, Louis Prima, was supposed to have his own movie, which was going to be about a bear escaping from a zoo with the help of a very accommodating mouse couple. But then Walt Disney had to go ahead and die and ruin everything for everyone. To make matters worse, Louis Prima was diagnosed with a very severe illness, so our hearts were broken in more ways than one. We believe that in an alternate universe, Winnie the Pooh is accompanied by Louis the Bear on Disney toy shelves. We hope you enjoyed learning about the fallen angels of Disney Studios. There are so many more that we don't even know about that are probably hidden in mysterious vaults that will hopefully be unearthed one day. Which films would you have liked to have seen? Feel free to comment about your faves, your thoughts, and if you have any inside scoops on flicks that we don't know about, then lay that knowledge on us! Also, to keep updated on all the important things in life, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. Ta-ta for now.